All right, let's try that. Hey, welcome to Lunch Talk, round two.
Friends. Yes, round
Crystal
two.
and I just introduced ourselves and everything, but nobody was there. So, anyways, hey, thanks for being here again. It is December 16th, 1:02 p.m. Central Time, year of our Lord 2021, and I'm excited that you guys are here again. You know the deal. If you're watching this right now live, do us a favor and drop a hashtag live. Let us know you're there. I'm excited to introduce to you guys a very special guest, Sean Crane. I've been working on this one a little while, actually, as we've been getting into our discussions with habits and, just understanding how we can do better in changing our lives. And we're trying to bring this information to you in our audience, things that we're looking for to make us better.
Yep.
It's been exciting to see just how many amazing people have been getting on and wanting to be a part of this. So we are just really pumped that you guys are here, and love that everybody's dropping it. Sorry, Donnie, I know you got it. I know. Donnie's like, stop. I got it.
Let Donnie do Donnie things.
Yeah,
Here we go.
yeah. And so if you guys know, last week we were in the state of Utah for an industry event, which was exciting. It'd been 2 years since we'd been at an in-person event. So it was exciting. Yep. And we had show plans, not only for this show, but for our Monday night ATF show. And man, we learned a lot about what you can and cannot do in the state. And then we had a storm come in, and we were scheduled to, and it was great because Sean was supposed to be on last week and he had to reschedule to this week.
Awesome.
But we had a storm that was coming in, so we had to cut our event short, and we were driving because we had all of our studio equipment with us.
Yeah. And
we had to get in the truck after a full event. I think we left around 6 o'clock, 6 to 6:30, ended up driving from Salt Lake City, Utah, almost 10 hours down to Limon, Colorado, just to get in front of the storm. It was exhausting. Nice, Donnie. Nice. But anyways, it is, I'm again, glad you're here, and I'm glad everybody's doing well. Krista, how was your week before we get ready to bring Sean in?
Friend, it was fantastic. I know I shared with you the week before that I had 12 ball games between my 3 kiddos. And man, it's just so fun to watch your kids do what they're passionate about. I know you get a chance to watch your kiddos there every day, really grind at what they're good at. And so we walked away with my little guy had 2 championships, a football and a baseball, which he was a big piece of both of those wins. So that was awesome. And my girls are just growing tremendously in their craft. And so it was a great weekend. I do feel a little kid hungover right now, though.
Yeah, I saw one of your posts. You had with one of your sons, it was a football game and a championship baseball game in the same day. Same day.
And he plays offensive line and defensive line. So he plays both ways in football. So he's emotionally exhausted because he's the biggest kid, so they come at him hard. And then he pitched 6 innings in his championship baseball game, so he was toast. And I'm so excited that Sean is on, because one of the things that we're talking about today is mental toughness, right?
Exactly right.
I have this really incredible story about my son in this weekend that I can't wait to share with you guys, but I'll wait. But it has to do with developing that muscle, that mental muscle, from as little as they are, so that when they get to grow up and be 15, 18, 30, 40, we're not starting from ground zero and scratch, right? So I'm so excited to talk about our guest today, or talk with our
guest today. No further delay. Let's bring him in. I'll go ahead and add him to the stream. Donnie, if you want to let us introduce Mr. Sean Crane. Sean is a best-selling author, TEDx speaker, and one of the things that I like to say, he's got an incredible story, which I can't wait for him to share with you. but a man that has had a life from a prison to a life of passion. I love what this guy's doing. Sean, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Really excited to be here with you too.
Absolutely. So if you can do us a favor and just kind of share with our guests briefly, just give us a little bit of your story, how you got here, and just the journey that you've been through and what you're doing in your life today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm from Santa Barbara, California, which is a beautiful beach community about 2 hours north of Los Angeles. And growing up, I was really into sports. Sports was my world. Baseball, basketball, football. I even surfed a little bit being on the coast. And family. Family was everything to me. I had tons of cousins in the area that I went to school with and played with as a young kid. I had aunts and uncles, and I had a great life growing up. Around age 10, though, I started to recognize a different pattern at home, and that was my parents were battling addiction. And despite having all these loving people in my life, they were suffering tremendously, and it started to impact myself and my siblings. And at the age of 14, my dad actually went to prison. And there was this really traumatic event at our household with cops and guns, and it was horrible. And this was my first month as a freshman in high school. So I was still trying to figure out who I was as a young man and form my own identity. And losing my father at that time crippled me. And then months later, my mom started to become unraveled. Her addiction was getting the best of her, and she started to not come home. And so within a short period of time, I lost my father to prison and my mother to the streets. And thank God I had my Uncle Mike, who had lived with us at the time. He was my dad's oldest brother. He basically raised us kids and stepped in and did everything he could to provide that support, that love, that security that we desperately needed. But the damage was done. And so I went through high school never stepping foot on a baseball field, football field. I never played any sports, and I really lost myself. And I went down this dark path of running from my problems, of trying to suppress the emotional damage that took place and not deal with it. So I started using drugs and alcohol myself, because that was the only thing I felt or used that could momentarily numb the pain. It was the only thing that I could do to try to escape my reality, but it didn't work. You know, my problems were still there. The pain was growing and growing. And in the midst of it, I was just losing myself further and further. And so fast forward to my early 20s, I graduated high school. I got a diploma somehow. And after high school, I had no vision for myself. I had no next step. I wasn't going to college. I had no plan. I was just in survival mode. And I was working for my uncle's tree service company. And that actually helped me to start building confidence for the first time in many years, because I was getting up early. I was working hard, using my body, you know, just pushing myself, earning a paycheck every week. And I was able to start contributing financially at home, which made me feel great, and help my Uncle Mike out, who had been taking care of us kids his whole life. But I still hadn't dealt with the underlying issues of my problems. And they would surface I'd be out drinking with friends and I'd get angry, or I was battling depression. I just had all these things I was going through, and I didn't know how to cope or deal with them, except take another handful of pills, drink another bottle of whiskey. Like, that was the only thing I did. And I was heavily dependent on those things. And so that led me to being at a party in Santa Barbara, California at the age of 23, where a massive fight broke out. And it wasn't anything out of the ordinary, honestly. We've all been at parties where guys get in fights, and it's pretty typical at that age. Yeah. So I didn't think anything of it. And I was involved. I got attacked, and I was getting, I thought, jumped at the time. So I was defending myself. And, somebody actually got assaulted with a weapon. And so the next day, the cops arrested me, and I was blamed for an attempted murder stemming from that assault that I did not do. So at the age of 23, I was looking at a life sentence in prison, and I literally thought my life was over.
Yeah. That's intense.
23 years old. At that point, where were you in terms of the recovery process of your youth? Were you still in the spiral the down spiral, or were you starting to pick yourself up? Because your journey through prison, because you served time in prison. This is part of your story, correct?
Yeah. I did 5.5 years in prison. Prison saved my life. At that point, I was spiraling downward rapidly. From the age of 21 to 23, I actually moved out of Santa Barbara. I had a good paying job. I had a girlfriend who I lived with. And for a moment, it seemed like I was making a shift in my life for the better, but I still hadn't dealt with those issues pertaining to my parents. Mm-hmm. And so we broke up, and I used that. I don't want to say as an excuse. I think that everything just resurfaced. She left. Now, I'm a failure in my relationship. I couldn't save my parents. They're dying right in front of me at that age from their addiction. I still didn't deal with the abandonment issues, and it all just came to the surface. So I went back into my addiction more heavily than ever. And, if I didn't get arrested that night from that party, I'd probably be dead right now because I was just, I was on a mission to kill myself. Really. I didn't realize it, but I didn't know what to do. So no, I was in really bad shape, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, when I found myself in that jail cell.
I think it's really incredible, Sean, that you can have gratitude for something that the average person would feel like it would be the worst thing that could happen to them in their life. And to hear your gratitude about it, that something like a prison sentence can saved your life. That's really incredible. And it's just amazing to have that as a part of your story. Because I know there have been several people in my family and in my world that I have seen who struggle with addiction, and their story does not end like yours. And so it's really powerful that you are willing to be open and vulnerable and share that with people, because it gives hope. And hope is the only thing that we have at the end of the day when it comes to suffering and having hardships. So that's really amazing. Amazing.
Absolutely. What I want to do now, Sean, is I want to fast forward, and then we're going to go back a little, because the next few years of your life brought you to where you are today. But I want to let the audience know who is Sean Crane today?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I'm a husband and father. I have 3 beautiful children. I married the woman of my dreams, so I'm a family man. I always have been. For profession, I work as a life coach. I work with men who are stuck in that mental prison that I was stuck in my whole life. Limiting beliefs, battling addiction, lack of self-esteem and confidence, just not taking care of themselves. So I get to work directly with men who are going through those things. And from the outside looking in, maybe they seem fine. Maybe they seem great, but internally they're still afflicted. So I love what I do. I work as a life coach with, a lot of different men across the country. I love speaking, traveling and speaking and sharing my story, my message on stage. I'm a best-selling author of Prison of Your Own, which is a memoir that talks about my life and what I went through and being in prison and how it changed my life and what I've been able to do since coming home. So those are the things that I do to serve and give back and share my story, because, I feel like I have a message that almost everybody can relate to. Mm-hmm. It's that internal battle that we all fight. It's knowing that we're made for more and having that intuition, that desire to do something great in our lives, but being scared to take those steps. And that was me. And I know it all too well. And I know a lot of people die with their dreams never being pursued or realized. And that just absolutely devastates me to know that. So I'm on a mission to reach those people and help them to take action before it's too late, because I feel like we're all capable to live that ultimate life, to live that dream life that we have, we aspire to live. I truly believe that.
It's interesting. And Chris, I think, I'd love to get your perspective on this, but what I find incredibly interesting is how much these stories and the battles that we have in our life constantly are woven into how we're able to achieve things in our personal careers. Mm-hmm. Because, I've shared this before, but what we do in our life is always, I believe, a reflection in what we're dealing with in our personal life, right? I know we're all meant for bigger and greater. It doesn't mean everyone needs to be the next Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
It means that we're here to do something bigger and better and impact. And our entire life journey, good or bad, is all going to be playing a role in that. And it's the reason why this is so important, Sean, that I wanted you on, because you're doing awesome stuff. You've got this incredible program that I've seen recently that you just recently posted on, where you're focusing, really doing some stuff with others on folks and men specifically that are in prison. I saw your interview posted from Bradley that you did that with. That was awesome. And there's all these things that are happening, but this was a mindset shift. And this is what I want to go back to, because, you know, we can become statistics. We can allow the guilt or shame of mistakes that are made to define or determine us. I think we all battle through this, you know, at different levels of our life. And when I talk to people that have broken through or succeeded, there was always a moment where the mindset had to change.
Mm-hmm.
And it, not all the time, but unfortunately in life, sometimes it has to be something traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
And then we make a decision whether we're going to shift and pivot our life, what Krista likes to call shivot, which I love, the hashtag shivot, and then do something great. So let's go back now to you're there, you're in prison. What was the shift in your mindset that brought you to where you are today as a TEDx speaker, as a best-selling author, and growing this success in your life with what you're passionate about and how you're changing lives?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the severity of my situation, you know, looking at a life sentence in prison at such a young age, it shocked me to the core. And I felt like I could see, you know, through all the BS, all the excuses, everything that I had allowed to hold me back my whole life, I could see right through it. And what I saw devastated me. I saw the truth about how I chose to live my life. And I was confronted by regret, you know, this form of regret that was so overwhelming. And I honestly I would have rather been dead in that cell than have to feel what I felt on a daily basis, knowing you just wasted your life. Your life's over. You had this dream to play professional sports or to go to college or just to be a better person, and you didn't do it. And now your life's over and you can't go back and do it over. There's no second chances. And that absolutely just devastated me. So that pain was so horrific. In that moment, I just completely surrendered. And I said, you know what? I don't care how much time I'm going to do in prison. I don't know what the future holds for me. But from this moment forward, I'm never going to hold back ever again. I'm never going to allow an excuse to stop me from being the person in my heart I know I can be. I'm never going to just waste another moment or another day. And that was the beginning for me. It was complete surrender. Because up until that point, I knew who I wanted to be, but I was scared. I was worried about what other people would think. I was worried about failure. I was worried about being judged for taking a certain course of action. And that fear plagued me and kept me stuck in my life. I got to a point where I said, I don't care. I'm exhausted from trying to be this person that I'm not. I'm exhausted fighting this internal battle. I'm just going to surrender and be that person. And I'm just going to embrace life, and whatever happens, happens. But going forward, I'm going to be 100% me, that authentic version of me in every waking moment. And that was the mindset shift. It was just acknowledging the truth and being willing to embrace that truth. And so, you know, that led to small actions that over time transformed my life. And we could talk about the habits, but for me, it was just that willingness. So it was the willingness to accept me for who I truly am and want to be. And then the second thing that was really important was letting go of anything that would hold me back. And for me, I knew sobriety was a must. I knew I had addictive tendencies. I was battling drug and alcohol addiction, and I knew that it would just ruin my life if I couldn't get sober. So I'll never forget one day in court, I'm shackled up like this, downstairs, waiting to be seen by the judge from 6 a.m. till 4 p.m. on this stainless steel bench. And just, I was in this really deep state of reflection during that time in my life, trying to figure out, where am I going? You know, why did my life end up like this? Just trying to put the pieces together. And I was committed to changing my life. I knew that I had to be committed if I had any chance to get out and do something good with my life, if they gave me that opportunity. And I'll never forget, I had just this moment of clarity where I said to myself, hey, you can never use drugs or alcohol ever again. Like, it's done. It's a wrap. Not one drop, not one drink at a celebration, nothing, never again. And the most amazing thing took place in that moment. I can't describe it fully, but I've never had a craving to use drugs and alcohol ever again. Like, not even one urge, not one thought like, oh, maybe this next time. It just vanished, and something internally changed. It was transforming within me. And I really correlate it to making that commitment to be my true self. Like, I was tapped in to that kid that loved life before I went through all those things, before I was, you know, seeing all this traumatic events at home, and something inside of me changed. And from that moment, I've never been the same. I'm back to who I was supposed to be my whole life. And, everything in my life is transformed because of it.
That's so powerful. That's incredible. It just goes to show you that self-awareness and clarity is everything. And it's the evolution, right? Of continuing to evolve into the person that we're supposed to be. And I think that it's really hard for most of us, because we're never taught how to talk to ourselves, how to tap into ourselves, how to have that discussion with ourselves before it's destructive, right? If we were taught as young kids, when you feel a certain way, when you have certain thoughts or emotions that we know are going to lead into a really negative space, how do you talk to yourself? How do you have awareness and allow yourself to feel and to understand and to be okay with being sad, and not to have to soothe that with something else, to not have to bury it with something else, right? And in my life, I've seen a lot of hurt and trauma because of trying to soothe a feeling, a hurt, a pain, a disappointment. And so I think that's incredible. That self-awareness, that clarity is, if we could just, and I love that that's what you're doing, Sean, if we could just teach people how to do that before the bottom has to fall out of their life, right? Like, oh my gosh, we would be such a better human race for it.
Yeah.
You know,
can I touch on
yeah, please go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Krista, that's so important. You know, what helped me in that process was time alone to just think.
Yeah.
Like, there was no TV, no job,
Right.
nobody. There was nobody. And never in my life had I had so much time to just reflect and analyze myself.
Yeah.
And I became aware of that self-talk. I became aware of so much that I had been unconscious to my entire life. And I was mind blown. You know, I was like, oh my gosh, if I had known these things or realized this stuff before I was incarcerated, I would have lived a much different life. And I think just having that time daily to self-reflect and be introspective can be so transformative for people, because, you know, we learn about ourselves. I learned more about myself in that jail cell the first 18 months than I had the first 23 years of my life.
Yeah. And so, you know, I work, and Rigo knows, I work with busy moms and their health and their weight loss and their nutrition, and they don't use alcohol and drugs or gambling or shopping. They use food. There is a sore in their body that is festering, and it's manifested into food addiction. And so one of the biggest tasks as their mentor, their guide, and their coach is that when they feel that tension, when they feel that urge to go binge, when they feel that urge to go self-soothe, we have a strategy where we stop and we say, hey, take the moment and ask yourself, hey, and pretend like it's your 5-year-old self, right? If you saw a little kid suffering or struggling who was sad or anxious or upset, you wouldn't be like, oh, get over it, knock it off, you're fine. Or here's a sucker, you're fine. No, you would get down to their level and you would say, hey, what's going on? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? Is that true? Why do you think that? And let's have a conversation with yourself. And this is a thing that they're like, I've never done that before. I've never asked myself, why do I want to go eat that? Why do I feel awful? And it's really powerful and incredible what happens when they have that moment with themselves. I say this all the time. The most important relationship, period, hands down, the most important relationship that you have in your life is the one that you have with yourself. And if it's broken, every other relationship in your world will be broken too.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, you had mentioned some things, Sean, where you talked about being surrounded by the truth and becoming your true self. And I think that's really profound, because something that has been on my heart and something I've wanted to speak on for some time is authenticity. You know, because in our profession, our professional careers, within what we do, and I've mentioned it a few times, the viewers that watch know where I stand on this, but I've always struggled with the idea that we are not given the opportunity in what we've seen for so many years, and I believe that is changing. So I believe that the workplace is changing, and things like what we do here, this environment, you know, all of us are around that same age group where we're being born in either the 70s or the 80s, coming through this period of life where never did I imagine that I would have this opportunity to have this program, you know, and go live and share with people. I mean, YouTube, everything that we have, like, think about how crazy that is, that today now anybody can decide to share, and we're learning from each other because of it. And I believe that because of that, the world is changing, and becoming more authentic is really where the root needs to be in so much of this, because you said surrounding yourself by the truth. The only reason we would be afraid of the truth is because we're living in a lie. And if we're living in a lie, it's because we're not being authentic to ourselves. And it doesn't mean that the world owes us anything. It means that we are called to do something, and ourselves and who we are and what we have to offer has to be real and authentic. And so lies and living in that lie doesn't necessarily have to be this huge lie. It can start small. And these are the challenges that I've seen in my own life and in others. But the greatest threats to everything we try to build are small lies that eventually grow into larger and larger and larger lies that end up controlling us. And we never live in the truth, because that fear of, how you said, being true to yourself, your true self, even if that means facing what you may not like and what you don't want to see in the mirror.
Yeah. I mean, that's the first step in growth and change, is admitting to yourself, like, hey, this is not who I am. This is not the life I want. Like, I'm not okay with this. Authenticity is the gateway to personal freedom.
Yeah.
You know, it's essential to create fulfillment within your life, because I don't care if you have $1 billion, but if you're living as a lie, if you're living as somebody you don't feel in your heart you're meant to be, the money's not going to bring you the joy. The success isn't going to create the joy. You know, I felt happier, more full of self-love and gratitude than I ever had in my entire life in my jail cell when I made these decisions and started embodying that person. I would go to sleep at night feeling this immense sense of gratitude. And I was like, what is going on? How am I experiencing this in here? People would come and see me in visitation. And my Uncle Mike, he looked at me in the eyes. He said, you're back. He said, this is the boy that I raised. He said, you're back. I don't know what is going on right now, but I haven't seen you smile or laugh this much in years. And I get chills expressing that right now, because I remember for a decade just feeling like I was getting beat down by the world and just feeling like I had no hope and I didn't know what to do. And all along I had the answer. It was, man, be yourself, be that person that you know in your heart you can become. And it was just fear holding me back. And so whether it's in our personal lives or our professional lives, authenticity is a superpower. I mean, you know, I've gotten to connect with more people and more opportunities because I've embraced my story and told it and shared it with people than I ever would have trying to be this perfect fitness guru or, you know, this perfect individual. People can't relate to that, but they know pain, they know adversity, they know that internal struggle. So if we could describe it and be authentic in sharing that journey and then talk about what we've done to overcome those challenges, well, wow, that's valuable. Like, can I get in a room with that person? Like,
that's power.
Right? Yeah.
And Sean, I think you hit on something. You just mentioned it. I think sometimes people think that authenticity has to be what people believe about us, not realizing that the authenticity, it doesn't matter what anybody else sees from you or what they believe of you. That's not the authenticity that we should be worried about. It's the authenticity within ourselves, right? I think people really try to force authenticity, but it's not, it's fake authenticity, right? It's a character. It's wearing a mask, it's wearing a cover and putting out an authentic version of what you think other people want of you. That's not authenticity. And I see people trying so hard to be authentic and truly wanting to be authentic, but then not being honest with themselves. And it's such a battle for them, right? And
you are hitting it right there. And you know what? Krista, thank you for expanding on that, because that is such an important element to this, right? It's being authentic internally. It's not just the being authentic in sense of a false authentic, right? It isn't about, I want to be what I think other people want me to be. You know, Sean, you talked about how fitness became the fuel for you, but what I know of you today and what I'm seeing growing from you, the fitness was the catalyst that helped you find who you were supposed to be. And like we talked about prior to the show, you have reached a particular level of success, but you haven't even started.
Yeah, absolutely. So that helped me to really embody my true identity. Growing up, I loved sports. I would be out in the neighborhood playing baseball in the street or football in the field next to our house until dark every day. That's who I am at the core. I love competition. I love to push myself physically and mentally. And I lost that for a time. You know, I lost that. I was out of shape. You know, I wasn't challenging myself physically. Mentally, I was just weak and just suffering. So when I was locked up in that cell, there wasn't a whole lot I could do to better myself. But I started realizing that if I had a daily routine where I exercised and then I was reading and writing, now I was doing all these things that helped me to feel good about myself and to feel the change in real time. Like when I push through all the excuses that come up during a tough workout and, you know, I came out of that hour, 45 minutes feeling accomplished. That was a great feeling. That was something that I had been missing for so long. So fitness started helping me to tap back into my true identity. And it was something I fell in love with and now is a pivotal component of my life.
Yeah. And so I think what's really incredible is that structure, right? You got into a routine and structure that empowered you and didn't pull you away. You knew what you could be accountable to yourself every day. Every day, I'm going to get up. I'm going to make my bed. I'm going to move my body. I'm going to use my brain. I'm going to use my kinesthetic skills and write. And that routine is so important. And I do often see that the people who struggle the most in my own business are the people who have no structure or routine in their day. And so they're just kind of winging it. And in that winging it, which most people consider freedom, right? Like this is freedom. They're imprisoned in not having any structure or discipline or pre-thought about what would make them feel good, what would fill you up, what would make you feel accomplished, what's important to you, what do you want out of your day, right? And we just don't know to ask those questions. And listen, no guilt or shame if you don't know. That's why we're having talks like this. It's why I run the business that I run. It's why Sean does what Sean does. It's why Rigo does what Rigo does. Because if you don't know, you can't fix what you don't know. Right. But once you know better, I feel a responsibility to show up and to help other people know better and to pour that into them. And Sean, that's what I see you doing as a life coach and showing people like, hey, know your vehicle and then show up and drive, like get where you want to go.
Yeah. You know, and it's finding ourselves alone. You know, Krista, you had said you made a comment about how we're not taught this, and you're absolutely right. And this is why, I believe that once you know what you know, yeah, and it's our job to share. There was a period of time where, as a humanity, communities were tighter because it was the way you survived.
Yeah.
Right. You didn't have large cities. You didn't have ways to get from what we have access to in today. Like we live in no better time in humanity than today, with access to information like never before. There is no excuse to not find the solution you need in today's world. We have access more than any generation has ever had with this little thing right here. But it could also be one of the greatest weapons against our growth, because we also have access to the largest and biggest distractions and to elements out there that are making us feel less about ourselves. Right. And because we're not like Dave Reese, a longtime watcher and viewer of the program, had said, if you don't know, you can't be yourself if you don't like yourself. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly it. So we find ourselves in positions where we stop liking ourselves, mm-hmm. and we hold the guilt and elements like this that start to destroy us. And why? Because we're doing it alone. And so I think it's powerful that you talk about how you got through the journey, you married the woman of your dreams, but talk to me about how that relationship has inspired you, and how that relationship between you and your wife, because to have a story and a history to tell, there had to be an area where you had to learn how to be true to yourself with her as well. I mean, you can't go through your life. You said, I'm an open book. You told us this earlier. To be an open book means you have to be an open book everywhere. Yeah. Talk to me about that part of the mind shift and how the habits you started to create coming from fitness played a role in what you're doing as a coach.
Yeah, I love this question. Pertaining to my wife, I tell people she's my superpower, man. With her in my life, everything across the board has steadily improved. She's believed in me since day one. We've known each other since childhood, but never really spent time together until a couple months before I went to prison. We briefly had a relationship, but we were both young and not looking for anything serious at the time. And thankfully, because months later I was in prison, but the spark was created, and then when I came back home, I thought a lot about the relationships that I was going to be in. I knew that I was going to have to cut people out of my life, including family members. I was prepared for that because I knew that I couldn't spend any time around people that were going to drag me back to that old lifestyle or just keep me stuck. I realized how important it is, the company that we keep and the people we surround ourselves with. And then I thought about, finding a relationship, and I was a different person now. I knew it was going to be different. Dating and whatnot growing up, it was always a party scene. I was a wild young individual, and I attracted that type of person into my life, those type of women. So I knew it was going to be different. I just remember thinking, the next woman that I settle down with, that I meet, I'm going to give her the world. Like, I'm going to give her everything that she deserves, because I know what it's like to be heartbroken. The relationship that I came out of before I was incarcerated, it devastated me. And I learned from it, though. I didn't just stay resentful. I didn't hold a grudge. I said, you know what? There was some things I did that I shouldn't have done. And I just took note. I took a mental note. And I was excited, thinking that I could get out and find that woman that I just wanted to treat like my queen, honestly. And so, getting out, I was going back to the gym doing personal training, and one day I was out at breakfast and I saw my wife with her friend, and we were kind of making eye contact across the restaurant, and we didn't even talk that day, but she knew I was back. And then I saw her a couple weeks later in the same restaurant. I was sitting down with my coworker who we were both doing personal training together, and she was at breakfast with her dad, and she said hi to him and she didn't say hi to me. I was like, okay, I'm going into her work after this, and I'm going to ask her, hey, what's going on? Did I do something that I don't remember? Like, is there something we need to talk about? But it turns out she was just a little shy and embarrassed. She didn't expect to see me there. And she actually called me the next week, and the rest is history. We started seeing each other, and we just honestly fell madly in love. We both wanted the same thing. We both wanted a family. We both wanted to just have that person, you know, and we got married 6 months later, and my daughter Scarlett was born, you know, probably a year after. So that right there, and I joke with her about that because we've just been all in from the moment we've been together. Like, if we want to do something, if something feels right, we go for it. We don't take time to contemplate these things. Like, there's some stuff in life you want to contemplate, but other stuff that I found, it's better to learn as you go. And from the moment I stepped out of those gates, I've been all in pursuit of the life that I know in my heart I'm meant to live. You know, I was on my uncle's property, staying in a trailer for the first 2 months. I got out with $200 in my pocket. I had nothing, no material items, no financial assistance, nothing. And I had the opportunity to go work at a gym as a personal trainer. And I just knew that was a step in the direction I wanted to go. And I had to take a plane to get there because there was mudslides that covered the US freeway, and I had no place to live. I had no car, but I got there, and I got the job, and I found a car, and I found an apartment. And that's the way I've been from the moment I got out. It's like, I'm all in, and it's amazing what can happen in your life when you have that willingness and that urgency. Like, what's the worst that could happen? You fail, it doesn't go your way, and you're just reverted back to the same position you're in now. Like, I'm okay with failure. I'm okay with stumbling. I learn and grow more through those experiences than I do when things are going my way. And chances are new opportunities, new doors are going to open up for you that otherwise wouldn't exist by waiting and playing it safe. And I think that's one of the main things that people struggle with is like just holding back. Like, just get out there and try things. Have that conversation, pursue that new goal that you have. Like, just take some steps in that direction. And before long, you build up momentum and you build up belief in yourself, and you start thinking, wow, this is possible. I'm doing it. Whether it's relationships, financially, in business, with your own health and taking care of yourself, it's all relative. So that's been a major theme of my life since returning, and it continues to serve me. Last note on that, we went out to Idaho 2 months ago and we loved it. So we flew back on Sunday and we bought our first house there.
Oh, yay!
Congratulations.
Yeah, we want to start a new chapter in our lives, and we see that as a beautiful place to raise a family. We get to bring my in-laws with us and retire them and take care of them. We got this big, beautiful place that they're building right now as we speak. So it's like we could have waited and hope that the right time would come, but it never comes.
No.
We make the right time by just going for it. And so, the journey continues.
Yeah, that's awesome. So one of the things that I would like to kind of highlight is this idea of a mental prison that you talked about. And I know that you were really involved in sports and you feel like you missed that piece of athleticism in your childhood, right? And so I was always super focused on sports, and I truly believe that my athletics is what saved me from living a different life and going down a path that I did not want to go down. I only went to school to stay eligible to play the two sports that I played in. I ended up going to college and being a two-sport college athlete. I played volleyball and softball in college, but the mental prison. So we all have our own mental prisons, right? We don't have to actually go to prison or have something life altering like what happened to you, Sean, happen in our own worlds for us to relate to that mental prison that you shared with us that you were in. And what I found is that elite athletes and high level competitors, there is this idea of perfectionism and that failure is not okay. And that you must always be your best and you must work the hardest and you must leave last and you must put it all on the court and you cannot feel the feels. You can't be scared. You can't be nervous. You can't be all of these things, right? Which buries your authenticity and your knowing. I call my voice inside my head, my knowing, because when that pressure is put on you, you are required to stuff anything that isn't success, forward momentum, and winning. And so now as I raise 3 really competitive athletes, that is one of my biggest goals as their mother of competitive athletes is, listen, sports are amazing. They're incredible. Being in high academics, amazing, incredible. But more important than the success that you find on the field or in your athletics, it's the success that we're going to find in your mindset, in the battle that you have in your mind. And that is a non-negotiable. I tell my kids, you can play club, soccer, baseball, football, whatever you want, but we will always take care of our brain, because that mental prison that you talked about is so real, and it's real for everyone, no matter what your circumstance was or what your life was like. We can put ourselves in that place very easily, and it feels the same for everyone. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad that you pointed that out. You know, there's a statistic, roughly 0.06 to 0.08% of our population in the United States is incarcerated right now. But I would be, you know, I would guess, I would assume that roughly 99% of people are stuck in a mental prison right now. 99%. I mean, I don't doubt that for a second. We all battle it. We all battle this internal fear of not being good enough. We lack confidence inherently sometimes in life, and things like sports or pushing ourselves in competition is a great way to build up that intrinsic value in ourselves. You know, I think so many people don't take care of themselves, and they're not doing things consistently in their life that helps them to feel good about who they are. Like getting up early, making your bed. It's the small things, and you pointing this out earlier, that help us to feel good about ourselves over time and how we're living. And that naturally carries out into the other parts of our lives. When you go to the gym every day and you work out and you take care of your body, you're going to show up as a better version of yourself in your relationships because you feel good about who you are and how you're living. You're going to show up differently in your business. You're going to have better results in other parts of your life when you're doing the things for yourself. And, you know, I think the mental prison stems from fear. I really do. And self-doubt. And what happens is every time we want to do something, you know, we have that desire, that idea, but we hold back and we listen to an excuse or we put it off. It's like we're breathing life and giving power to that fearful side of ourselves. But the moment we start making choices to take baby steps towards that person we want to become, this is what I start doing in prison, in jail, to switch my mindset. I started becoming aware of this internal dialogue. I knew who I wanted to be. And every day that voice would be inside of me. Do this, Sean, get up and do that workout. Go pick up that dictionary, look up these words, go read that book. It was the smallest, simplest things in that moment. But I started paying attention and I started following through with action. Had I sat in that cell and said, oh, why do I need to work out? I got 5.5 years left. I don't want to read that book. What does it matter? You know, I would have been reinforcing the fear and self-doubt that had plagued me my entire life. And I would have stayed trapped in that mental prison. But I was able to find freedom in a jail cell because I started paying attention to that voice that aligned with who I wanted to be, that intuition. And I was courageous enough to go on that journey. And it literally started with the smallest, simplest things every day. But in a matter of months, I was building up so much confidence in myself and so much momentum, and I've never looked back. I mean, looking up words in my pocket dictionary in a jail cell gave me confidence and belief in myself. When I got to prison, I enrolled in a college correspondence program they had. Because I picked up that dictionary and I was just willing to try, I believed that maybe I could take these college courses and do good or learn something. And I actually got 4 associate's degrees in prison. And they gave me 6 months off my sentence because of that. So right there, that shows you how the small little choices we make compound over time. But oftentimes we don't take those actions because we're scared, we doubt ourselves, or we don't believe they're going to serve us down the road. And in reality, you're keeping yourself stuck and you're losing out on so much in life with that mindset. So those little things right there is what changed my mindset and changed my life. It was the willingness to take action. It was being aware of that voice, that intuition, that truth within me, and just being courageous enough to pursue it and see what happens.
It's amazing. So good. So good. I want to share a really quick story about this weekend. And one of the things that I love to use with my kids when they start to slip in their mindset. And right now, their biggest battlefield, you guys, is a baseball field, a football field, a soccer field, right? It's not work and relationships and stuff like that. This last weekend, I was sharing with Rigo and you guys that my kids had 12 ball games. And my son, he's a very large kid. And so people expect certain things of him because of his size, right? And so we work a ton on mindset, a lot on self-talk, a lot on routines, even going up into the batter's box. What is your routine? You get into the box a certain way, you tap the bat a certain way to set yourself up for what you're going to do. And he was pitching in the championship game on Sunday. And he was 4 innings in. He pitched about 65 pitches. He's only 11 years old. And in the 5th inning, he walks out to the mound, and I can tell he's tired. I can tell he's emotionally tired, and I can tell that he's physically tired. And he starts shaking his arm a little bit and looking at the dugout like he's kind of wanting the coach to ask, "Are you okay?" so that he can get taken out, because I can see that his mind is slipping. And he's doing this again, and he's kind of looking over at the dugout. But we have cue words in our family, and one of them is slow it down, right? So like when my kids get really anxious or they get really freaked out because they can't find something or they're not doing well in school, we'll say slow it down, and then they know to take 2 or 3 cleansing breaths and then to ask themselves a question or to check themselves, right? And so I just yelled from the side because he needed a little cue. And I just yelled, "Hey, slow it down, Bubba, let's go." And I saw him look at me because he stopped looking at the dugout. He walked up to the mound, he got into his stride, and he finished the entire game, and they won by a walk-off hit. But it's really important that as little kids and as adults, we don't give ourselves permission to take ourselves out of the game, right? I think a lot of times when we don't have those cues, when we don't have those words, when we don't have that reset button for ourselves, even when things go bad, what do? We take ourselves out of the game. And I'm not going to let my 11-year-old do that in baseball. And hopefully when he's 30 and he's raising a family and things are hard at home, because things get hard at home, he doesn't take himself out of the family. He doesn't take himself out of his job. That's important to me as his mom, to teach him how to reset without throwing all of what he's done in the toilet. And I don't know, do you have anything like that, Sean, like a reset or a phrase or a word or anything like that that helps people kind of come back to themselves?
So good.
And realize.
I love that.
Yeah, that's so good.
I love that. You know, mental toughness, like grit is, oh my gosh. I mean, less and less people have it now, and less people are preaching it now. But if you don't have that mental toughness, you're going to feel like you're getting beat down a lot in life.
Yeah.
You know, you got to do things when you're tired. You got to do things when you don't feel like doing it. That's what separates you from maybe that version of yourself that achieves less than. Nobody wants to achieve less than. We all want to like be great at what we're doing in life. It's built within us. And that requires consistently doing things that are challenging in my eyes. So I love that you're teaching your boys and your children that now. Something that I use with my son, who's 11, is if I ask him to clean his room or do a chore, he's just doing anything and he's not doing it to the best of his ability. I'll go up and I'll say, "Hey, if I had $1 million right now in a bag right here, and I said, hey, I want you to make your bed and clean your room perfectly, like to perfection, and I'll give you this $1 million. Would you do it?" And he'll look over at me and he'll kind of smile. And that switch is flipped instantaneously because he goes, "Yes, absolutely."
Yeah.
I said, "Well, why don't you do it like that despite the $1 million? If you know you can do it like that," because you just real quickly answer that question, why don't you do it like that despite not having the money? Because you and your life and the way you approach everything in your life is far greater in value than $1 million.
Yeah,
And
so
I promise you, if you approach your life with that mindset, you're going to experience a lot more gratitude, a lot more fulfillment that is far superior to any amount of money or success that you'll ever achieve. And I tell that to guys that I work with too. I had an individual who was complaining about running and a leg injury that he was dealing with. And I asked him, "Hey, you know, if I was going to give you $1 million to run a marathon right now, but you had to run it with effort and pride and push yourself, would you do it?" He goes, "Well, absolutely."
Yeah.
I said, "Well, man, you're fighting this internal battle. You're keeping yourself stuck because you don't want to go out and run today, but you just answered the question. You would do it for $1 million. How do you think you're going to feel if you start attacking your life and living your life like that every day?" Right? So it's a quick way to flip that switch, because we'll do anything for $1 million. Absolutely. Absolutely. But we overlook the little things in our life every day that help us to move in the direction we want to go.
Well, and I think what you do is you create value for what feels mundane, right?
Yeah.
Value for what feels like doesn't have value. I know when I tell my kids to put their dishes away or to clean their rooms or make their bed, it doesn't feel like there is a value to it. But you, in this 1 hour discussion, that value those actions, that structure is literally what changed your world forever. So if we had to put a monetary value on what making your bed, getting up early in prison, opening up that dictionary, if we had to put a monetary value on that, it would be priceless. It is what pulled you out of the hole that you were in, right? And so I think I'm going to so steal this strategy because I think it helps our kids and ourselves put value to the task and the action that seems too small to matter.
Yeah,
so good.
No, you're so accurate there. We need to know that thing or that action is valuable. And a lot of times the mundane stuff, we stop seeing the value in it. So now the cue that I'll yell over to my son or anybody really that I'm working with is $1 million mindset. If I see him come home from school and he's mentally, emotionally drained and I could see, the irritability or something in him and he's doing something, I say, hey, $1 million mindset. And he knows, he'll look at me and smirk. And I don't have to say anything else. He knows, He gets it now. And so that's the cue for him to get him back on track and just focused on finishing the day strong.
Oh, so good. So good.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to use poppets for my 8-year-old Rigo because $1 million. She's like, nah, I'm good. Mom's rich. She'll buy me anything.
You're talking about those little rubber things that, like
I'll be like, I have 52 poppets in my pocket right now. What would you do for them? Oh,
all I did was I looked at that silly little toy and I just thought, dang it. 22 years I have been raising children, and there are two things that have always entertained them.
Yes.
And that is the box and the bubble
package.
wrap that came in the box. And I cannot tell you how many times those two things have been more entertaining than the toy that was in the box with bubble wrap. And when that silly little toy came out, again, I just thought, damn it. Like, I should have thought of this. Look, this has been an amazing conversation. There is so much value that came out of both of you guys. I mean, first off, Krista, love that you are a part of this and we do this together, and the guests that we have been amazing. Sean, I can't thank you enough for being a part of this. I want to let you know that you are always welcome to come back anytime and share anything with our audience. But there's so much that has come through this, and what I have really gathered for myself as kind of a final thought is you had said everybody wants greatness, and there are so many that are not pursuing better versions of themselves, and that is because, to Krista's point, we took ourselves out of the game somewhere, because most of us battle this journey alone, and we're not taught how to seek the counsel, the help, the mentorship, or we've come face to face with a version of ourselves that we dislike so much that we decided not to face it because we felt alone. This is, to me, in my thought process, probably one of the largest attributes to areas of failure, because failure happens when we quit. It doesn't happen when things fail, right? When a business doesn't work, there are ways to learn and grow, and you continue. When a diet doesn't work, when a pursuit of some level of happiness doesn't work, it's not failure. It is a moment of shifting and understanding that we need to continue to pursue this. And so learning how to create that mindset shift, and those, you keep saying it, and I love it, and we can't really get too much more into it. We're out of time, but this small incremental steps, and we talk about this all the time. It's building small habits and doing them every day that become bigger habits. When they're positive, the change that it makes in our lives is monumental, and the impact we'll make in others is always going to be there. And so I just thank you both for what you shared. It was great. I needed this today more than you guys will ever understand. Thank you so much, Sean, for being here. Yeah. I really appreciate it. If you have anything you'd like to share with us before before we end the program, please.
Yeah, no, I'm just super grateful to be here with both of you. I mean, Krista brought the fire, you brought the fire, man. Like it was awesome. So I love these conversations. These are the conversations that need to be had, and put this content out there. And hopefully someone today who needed to hear it did, and they can apply some of these steps to their life. So that's the mission, right?
That's exactly right. I know I needed to hear it.
Yeah, me too. Iron sharpens iron.
Yeah,
friends.
that's exactly right. I know I needed to hear it.
Yeah.
So you guys, thank you guys all for being here. For those of you guys watching, like always, listen, if any of this was valuable to you, please let us know you're watching, whether it's on a replay or not. Find we have other great interviews like this with other great people that have just been able to come in and really impact us. We really want to see you join our community, because this is how we let you know when we're doing more like this. There's nothing to it, and that's really all it is. This is just something to give you value. And that community, if you're in North America, 316-799-8052, just drop a hashtag lunch there. We join our community, and when we do our lunch talk episode and we go live, we let you know. And it's that simple. And when we have valuable information to give away, we send it out. It's not a spam. It's not for business. It's not for anything else. We purely do this, you guys, as a paying forward. I hope you guys understand that. And we're so grateful for our guest, Sean. So again, thank you very much. We'll talk again soon. For those of you guys watching, thanks for being here. Share, like I said, with people that you believe that this will help. And let us know what else you want to see. What do you guys want to talk about? And we will talk to you guys next week. Are we good next week, Donnie? It's not a holiday. When are we going off? It's Friday. So Thursday will be, we'll be good. So we'll be here next Thursday. Krista and I are happy that you're here. Thanks again, Sean. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thanks for being here. All right. We'll talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.